Hello, my name is Sumahar. I'm coming to you from the coast of Maine today. The goal of this video is to help you decide what is the best seat on your specific flight. We're going to go over the pros and cons of sitting in a window versus an aisle seat, sitting in the front or the middle or the back of the plane. If you're a person of size, if you're traveling with a pet, with an infant, things that you should know if your flight has been canceled or you've had a schedule change. Ideally, you should watch this video before you booked your flight so you don't make any mistakes and book the wrong type of ticket. If you've already bought your ticket, that's fine. I'll still go over many great tips that I have learned in my 30 plus years of being a travel agency owner and sending tens of thousands of clients on flights all around the world. And personally, I have been to 37 countries, 44 states, and 6 continents. So let's take a look at the variables that may affect your specific flight and your seat options.
Some of the variables include the size of your party. It makes a difference whether you're traveling by yourself or with a party of 10 all trying to sit together. What's the length of your flight? If you're on a 1-hour flight, your seat is not so important as if you're on a longer 18-hour flight. What's the type and size of the aircraft? Are you on a small 18-passenger or are you on a larger plane that accommodates over 500 people? How did you book your flight? If it's through a travel agent, that's great. I always highly recommend you book with a travel agent as they can help you along the way, especially if you have any problems. Or did you book directly through the airline, which I personally recommend over a third party like Google Flights or Expedia. Please note, third-party vendors are usually very restrictive and tougher to make any changes. I know a lot of people who've gotten burned and lost the entire cost of their airline tickets that way. Is your flight booked as a package or through a cruise line? Sometimes there are bulk or contracted fares that do not allow seats to be assigned when they're originally booked. Sometimes they can't be booked until check-in, sometimes 30 days before, so make sure you do know what the restrictions are, if any, on those type of tickets. Are you flying nonstop or do you have a layover? If you've got a short connection, you might want to think about paying a little extra if there's seats up front. That'll get you off the plane a little bit faster. You never know, a few minutes can make the difference between making a flight. How far in advance are you booking your flight? If it's a week in advance, you may not have any good seats to choose from. You may not be able to get your seat assigned until you actually are at the airport. Keep checking back to see if there are any seats that do open up as you get closer to travel. The further in advance you book, the better your seat options. Most major airlines will release their flights about 330 days in advance. Are you flying over a holiday or school break? If so, your flights will probably be pretty full, if not oversold. Book those times sooner than later. How often do you fly? Are you a frequent flyer with any particular airline? I do recommend you enroll in airlines' frequent flyer programs because sometimes they do have some special benefits for you. For example, with Delta, if you're a frequent flyer with them, they'll offer you free Wi-Fi on board most of their flights. You may also want to consider applying for the airline's credit cards, as they do offer some pretty good perks. For example, free checked bags, and that can have a $30 value per person in each direction. You can earn points and earn free airline tickets, upgraded seats. Sometimes you can get priority boarding or access to airport lounges, so definitely worth taking a look at. What type of ticket are you purchasing? Some people buy the cheapest tickets, which are usually called basic economy. They are very restrictive. The only advantage is that the price is cheaper. There are many negatives to buying a basic economy ticket, including seats are usually not assigned until after you check in for your flight. You may be stuck in a middle seat. You may not sit with others in your party, even if you're booked in the same reservation. Some airlines do allow you to pay for one of these basic economy seats. Changes and cancellations are usually not allowed, but some airlines do allow changes for a fee. You're usually the last to board the plane, which means overhead space may not be available. There may also be luggage restrictions. Some don't allow you to bring an overhead carry-on bag. You may not be able to earn frequent flyer miles. Just make sure you know all the restrictions and rules of your specific ticket type before purchasing a basic economy ticket. I do not recommend them as they are non-refundable with no future credits given if not used. Most people will book your regular main economy seats. There's usually no charge for seat assignments, but they usually are located in the back of the plane. If you want seats up front, most airlines are now charging you for it, and it's usually called premium seating or preferred seating. The cost of that seat, keep in mind, it's the same size seat as in the back of the plane, same legroom, same seat, it's just located up front. The cost will depend on the airline, the length of the flight, the type of plane, so that will all vary. All you're paying for is a better location up front. But again, if you've got a tight layover, it might be worth paying that. Let's talk about seats that will provide you some extra legroom. I have 3 options for you. First one is those seats in the front of your main cabin. They'll give you maybe 3 or 4 inches of additional legroom. They do come at an additional charge. Delta calls it Comfort Plus, United Economy Plus, American Main Cabin Extra. Your other 2 options for extra legroom are bulkhead seats, which is the row behind a wall that separates the different cabins. Usually gives you 3 to 7 inches, sometimes an extra foot or 2, but that's the bulkhead seats. Or exit row seats will also give you extra legroom. But in order to sit there, you have to be over 15 years old. You have to speak English, and you must be willing and physically able to help out if there is an emergency. For both the exit and the bulk row seats, no one will recline back into your space, which is nice. However, please note if there are 2 exit rows together, for example, say row 10 and row 11 are both exit row seating, those that are sitting in row 10 will not be able to recline their seats into row 11. You need to leave that space clear in case there's an emergency. Some exit row seats do not allow you to have your carry-on bags under the seat in front of you. Bulkhead seats don't have a seat in front of you, they have a wall, so you cannot have your carry-on bags on takeoff and landings. However, once you're at a cruising altitude, generally it is not a problem to bring your carry-on bags into your space. The last few times I've sat in an exit row, it has been freezing. And I think it's because there's no insulation in the exit row doors because they have all the mechanical equipment in there. So be warned, if you're sitting in an exit row seat, you might want to bring some extra layers with you. The tray tables for exit and bulkhead seats are usually found in the armrest. And if your flight has individual TV monitors, they're usually in the armrest as well. This does mean those seats are usually a little bit narrower than the regular seats, so keep that in mind if that'll make it less comfortable for you to sit in a narrower seat. If you plan to work on your laptop, I have found the tray tables to be a little too close to me and pretty flimsy. My personal preference is that I prefer the tray tables that come down from the back of the seat in front of me. Always look for the bathroom location when booking your seats. Since exit and bulkhead seats usually are toward the front of the aircraft, they may be closer to the restrooms on board. I'd hate to see you spend some extra money on one of these seats and then be uncomfortable because you're dealing with some maybe unpleasant odors or bothered by lines that are forming around you, which sometimes can mean people are leaning on your seat while they're in line. Or you have the occasional slamming of doors. That may be annoying as well. And of course, your best seats on any airline are going to be your first class or business class seats if your particular aircraft has that. Those seats are going to come with a lot of perks, such as priority check-in and boarding, free checked bags, wider and more comfortable seats with more legroom, better food and drink options, better service, sometimes even pillows and blankets. But it will come at a higher cost. Or maybe it's worth using some airline points for this upgrade. I've seen upgrades as low as $100 and several thousands of dollars. It's usually worth checking, as you never know if your flight will have an offer you just can't refuse. I'd like to chat a minute about window seats. Some of the positives of a window seat are that you have a wall next to you, so if you do want to rest your head and try to get some sleep, you might be a little bit more comfortable. If you've got a window shade, you do get to control that. There's less people around you because you're not in the aisleway where you've got more people walking next to you, so a little bit less chance of catching something like a cold or COVID. The biggest advantage that I see of a window seat is that you get to enjoy the scenery. You can watch the plane take off and land. Sometimes there's awesome sunrises and sunsets, and just being up in the clouds and being able to see the earth below, I really enjoy. Disadvantages: window seat can be a little bit colder. If you need to get up and use the restroom or stretch your legs, you've got to ask the people next to you to move, or you can try to time your bathroom breaks when the people next to you get up. So let's talk about aisle seats. If you've ever had a blood clot or you need to walk around or get up often, an aisle seat is what you want to select. If you've got longer legs, it's usually a little bit easier if you're in an aisle seat because you can stretch your legs a little bit more. You got a little bit of extra space, but you have to be very careful about the carts and the suitcases and the people that are walking in the aisles. You need to make sure that your arms and legs are in when someone could be crashing into you. It's definitely a little bit easier to access your carry-on bags that are in the overhead bin if you're sitting in an aisle seat. One of the biggest disadvantages is that you will have to move for anyone sitting on the inside seats if they need to get up during the flight. If you're on one of those larger planes that has a middle section of seats, always try to sit on an aisle seat in that middle section. For example, the picture on the screen shows 38D, E, and F in the middle of the plane. Notice that someone is already sitting in 38D, the one aisle seat, but 38E and F are currently open. If you put yourself into 38F, you have a chance that no one will sit in that dreaded middle seat, 38E. And hopefully that seat will remain empty and you'll have a little bit of extra space. An unwritten rule is that whoever is sitting in the middle seat also gets both armrests. If you were not able to find seats that you like, keep going on the airline's website and look for better seats to open up. Usually 4 to 5 days before your flight, the airline will start upgrading their loyal passengers to Comfort Plus and Business and First Class, and your main economy seats will start opening up a little bit more. And also, many people will cancel their flight last minute, so their seats will be available to you. Please note, once you've issued your boarding pass 24 hours prior to, you generally cannot change your seats because your boarding passes have already been processed and have your seats confirmed. If you do want to change your seat after your boarding pass, chances are you'll have to see a gate agent to do that. Many of these tips can apply to any flights. However, many of my references will relate to the major U.S. airlines being United, American, and Delta. I've used SeatGuru.com for years when I wanted to see specific seat information, especially the details for exit and bulkhead seats, as they do vary greatly from plane to plane. Unfortunately, TripAdvisor, who owns that website, is no longer keeping it up to date. So another website that is up to date but not quite as informative as SeatGuru is aerolopa.com. But you do need to know your exact aircraft type in order to use their seat maps. That information should be available on the airline's website. Aerolopa does provide you with flight entertainment, Wi-Fi and charging information, seat configurations, etc. If there are two of you traveling together and your flight has 3 seats on each side and neither one of you really want the middle seat, I do have 2 suggestions. 1, book aisles across from each other, then you both get an aisle seat. I've seen more and more people doing this lately. Or, if you don't think the plane will be full, consider booking a window and an aisle seat. If the plane is not 100% full, the empty seats are going to be the middle seats and probably more towards the back of the plane. The person in the middle will be very happy to take either your window or aisle seat. If your traveling party has 4 people and your flight has 3 seats on each side, I'd suggest booking 3 seats on one side and the aisle across. Or if you'd like to try to do a window and an aisle seat, hope that middle seat stays open, and then right behind that, so 2 rows right in a row, do the same middle and aisle and hope that middle seat stays open. For example, on the screen, you'll see 24A and C and 25A and C are booked in hopes that 24B and 25B will remain open. If you have more than 5 people in your party, I do prefer rows behind each other. It's much easier to talk to each other when you're rows in front and behind versus across the aisle. Plus, in this post-COVID world, since you're sitting closer to each other, there's less strangers that are around that could be, say, coughing behind you. The airlines have been making a lot of schedule changes lately. If your flight does have a schedule change, always make sure the flight times and seats are still acceptable for you. I've seen the airlines reassign people to rows apart when they were originally sitting together. If you don't like your new flight, this is a good opportunity to see if there's any better flights for you. The airlines vary with what they consider a major enough schedule change to change your flight or to offer you a refund. I've seen major schedule change considered as little as an hour. I would not accept any schedule changes until you get closer to travel, just in case you need to cancel your flight. If it turns out that you do need to cancel your flight, call the airline, be as nice as you can, and let them know that the schedule change is unacceptable and you'd like to request a refund. Just make sure you do cancel it prior to departure, as most tickets do require you to cancel the flight before the flight takes off, or you may forfeit any airline credit that you may qualify for. If you're traveling with an infant, which is a child under 2 years of age, you pretty much have 2 options. If you're flying domestically in the United States, you can either pay a full price seat for the child, or if you're willing to have the child sit on your lap, they can fly for free. Or if you're flying internationally, some airlines will charge 10% of the adult fare and or the taxes and fees on that ticket if they're willing to fly as a lap child. If you would like a seat for that child on an international flight, some airlines charge the full fare and some do offer maybe a 25% discount off of the adult fare. So airlines definitely vary on this, but do keep in mind it is safer to have your child sitting in a car seat while flying. A few things to consider whether deciding to buy a seat or have the child fly as a lap child would be: what is the size of the child? How comfortable will the child and the adult be sharing a seat? How long is the flight? If it's an hour long, it's going to be different than if it's a 6-hour flight. What time of day? Is it the child's nap time? Is it their cranky time of the day? How active do you expect that child to be? Are you traveling by yourself, or will you have other people there to help you? If it's a larger aircraft, consider calling the airline to see if they do offer bassinets in a bulk row. You'll find those mostly on the international flights, but do call as far in advance as possible because, of course, that is very limited. If you will have the child fly on your lap, you might want to consider a window seat. It might be a little bit more comfortable. You have got the side of the plane to lean on. You've got a window to watch out. Feeding or nursing the child might be a little bit more comfortable. You won't have people bumping into you as they're walking up and down the aisles. If you are a person of size, do consider buying 2 seats for yourself so that you are more comfortable and the people around you are more comfortable. Please note, Southwest currently does offer refunds if you buy a second seat, but you do need to request it after you fly, and I think that's pretty great. If you do need a seatbelt extension, please ask a flight attendant if they have one available. Southwest does not pre-assign seats. They will assign a boarding number to you in the order that you have checked in for the flight. I'm going to do another video just on Southwest boarding and seat assignments because that is completely different than all the other airlines. So stay tuned for that video. So let's talk about seats in the front of the plane. It's good if you want to get off the plane as quickly as you can. It is good if you have a tight connection and are worried about how much time you need to get to your next gate. Generally, meals and drinks are served front to the back of the plane, so you generally will get served first. Two disadvantages: you have more people sitting in the front of the plane than in the back. Therefore, you are exposed to some more people with colds and COVID. And generally, you will pay to sit up front in your preferred seating, your premium seating, your Comfort Plus seating. So generally, it's a little bit more expensive to sit there. Let's talk about seats in the middle of the plane or over the wing. Some people feel safer there because you have the wing underneath them. Overall, it is a little bit less turbulent because you are in the middle of the plane. Disadvantage is that it can interfere with your view. Some people like to sit right in front of the wing or right behind the wing, not necessarily over the wing. If you're a nervous flyer, you may want to think about sitting over the wing, as it is the most stable part of the plane. Preferably an aisle seat so that you can let the flight attendant know that you are a nervous flyer, and maybe they can check up on you every once in a while and make you feel a little bit more at ease. Now let's talk about seats in the back of the plane. Some disadvantages: usually you'll feel the turbulence a little bit more in the back. Generally, you're the last one to get off the plane. Some advantages of the back: fewer people sitting back there because more people want to be in the front. Better chance of having a middle seat empty if the plane is not completely full. And it is the safest place to be on the plane. What you do have to be careful of is the bathrooms. Generally, you're also in the back, so try not to book too far towards the back, and the last row on most planes usually does not recline. If you are traveling with a pet on your flight, try to book sooner than later, as they do limit the number of pets on flights. You'll need to call the airline for their reservation. A certified service dog is usually free. All other pets, including emotional support animals, will be charged generally $100 to $200. There are a lot of restrictions with flying with animals. You have to make sure you have the right paperwork filled out, the right vaccinations for them. They cannot sit in an exit or a bulk row seat. Make sure you know the exact size of your carrier and make sure it will fit underneath the seat in front of you. Your pet has to be able to stand up and walk around without touching the sides. You might want to consider buying one of the seats with extra legroom if available on your flight, so it's a little bit more comfortable. A window seat may not be a bad idea if your animal's a little bit more reactive to commotion. It'll be a little bit calmer in the window seat than in the aisle seat where people are constantly walking by. The pet really needs to stay in the carrier the entire time. Airlines really don't want you taking the pets out at any point. If you're taking your pet to a different country, you may need to quarantine the animals, so please be aware of that. I highly recommend you check out the airline's website for all the specifics, and if you still have questions, call the airline so that you know exactly what you need to do. And my last tip on this video is if you do have a tight connection and you're sitting in the back of the plane, you may want to consider letting the flight attendants know, especially if your flight is delayed. They're more apt to make an announcement to say, please let those people who have a tight connection go if you have enough time for your connection or this is your final destination. If there are not too many people that have a tight connection, they might actually let you move a seat up closer to the front. Rarely does that happen, but you never know. It might be worth a try.
Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it and learned something, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I will be releasing more travel videos in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Now go out. Now get out and explore the world.
If you have any thoughts, questions, personal experience you'd like to share, or any additional tips, please leave a comment, as I would love to hear from you.